Jackie Paul here. So we took it out on the boat and tested it on the boat and noticed a pretty strong exhaust smell, a very strong exhaust smell. Matter of fact, it was very unpleasant when sitting in the front seat. So we brought the engine back and did what's called a leak down test on the cylinders. And we don't know if the parts supplier supplied us with the wrong piston rings or if our machine shop did something wrong. I can't imagine what he would have been doing wrong. He's been doing these engines since he was 13 years old and he's 65 years old. So, but this is his last engine. He decided he was going to retire and this is the last engine, and perhaps it shows. I don't know. I don't know if the parts are, doesn't matter. So we have, of course, because he's retiring, we have switched to a different machine shop that has built some engines for us in the race engines for us in the past, and also has built the last 6-cylinder flathead that we did, which actually came into the system after yours. We're taking it to that machine shop, and we're going to pull the pistons and figure out if we got the right rings on them, or for whatever reason. We like I said, we did a leak down test and basically the pistons failed. So we're getting blow by out this. All the combustion is supposed to happen and stay on the top side of the piston. When it goes to the bottom side of the piston, some blow by is acceptable and normal, and the blow by that's normal comes out of here and gets reburnt. It goes back into the carburetor and gets reburnt. But we actually had blow by coming out of the oil, not only coming out of there, but coming out of the oil dipstick tube. So we had an excessive amount of blow by, and it's at our expense. We're getting that corrected. In the process of pulling the engine back out this morning, we discovered that you have the wrong ignition coil on this. This says it's supposed to have an external resistor. So I don't know if you ever experienced this problem or not, but this coil, if you leave this coil in place, it's going to get hot when you're operating, and once it gets hot, if you go back to your science class, once you get your core gets hot, it's no longer magnetizable, and the magnetic principles is what makes this coil work and buck the voltage up from 12 volts to like 22,000 volts. So anyway, basically this thing would stop and you would not be able to operate the engine again until the coil cooled. And we found some evidence as well. There's a crack on the top. So we found some evidence that maybe this coil has been overheated. And so if you ever experienced that problem of this thing, you had the boat out and the coil, and then that's the other thing, is spinning the case. So this coil's shot, and we're going to need to replace that. But it says clearly on the side, external resistor required. You can buy a coil, and we'll buy you a coil that doesn't require an external resistor, and these are less than 50 bucks. So we'll get that done for you. The other thing that we noticed is that
He's got a break in that wire.
we can sleeve that with some heat shrink.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but at any rate, we found a break in the wire. But we noticed that your amp meter is not wired in at all. There's no wires to the back of your amp meter, and we can correct that for you. We can run a couple wires and we can land that for you as well. Although the wiring, I don't know if you had a friend do it, but there are some problems with the wiring. And by the way, we couldn't get the lights to work, or the instrument lights, or that stuff didn't work. So curious about the wiring's very curious.
There was all the wires were loose on the ignition switch, and then one of them was actually stripped.
Yeah,
I tightened them all, and one of them wouldn't tighten. It was just stripped.
So on the ignition switch, all the wires were loose. All the screw terminals were loose. One terminal in particular was stripped out. So anyway, you're going to need you may want to put a new ignition switch on it, and you may not, but you'll at least need to put a nut behind that wire on your ignition. So anyhow, that's pretty much the long and the short of this deal. Just want to let you know we are making progress, slowly but surely. We actually ran it twice, hoping that we might seat the rings and get them to seal off, but the result of the leak down test was the same. So we've evidently there's something wrong with either the parts or the installation of the parts, the piston rings. Thank you.